My name is Kevin Patterson. I am the author of Love's Not Colorblind, Race and Representation in Polyamorous and Other Alternative Communities. I'm also the co-author of the For Hire series, a series of queer polyamorous superhero novels.
We would love for you to define maybe what a polyamorous relationship is and why you chose to specialize in this field.
Speaking about polyamory and polyamory education, mostly because of representational issues that I found in just being polyamorous out in polyamorous spaces. I live in the Philadelphia area. Philadelphia is a very Black area. It's anywhere between like 40 and 45% Black. And I would find myself often as one of, if not the only person of color at a lot of events that I went to. I started talking about it and people started listening, and it turned into a whole educational thing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you define commitment in a polyamorous relationship?
Commitment in a polyamorous relationship, a lot of people feel like it sounds off, but really it's just making the decision, making the choice, and putting in the effort to be with someone on a basis that you both agree to. I just had a 5-year anniversary with a partner in September. I'm about to have a 4-year anniversary with another partner in January. And it's just, we've made the decision to be together. If we run into conflict, we're going to work it out. We're not just going to, trash the relationship if it's something that we could speak on and sort through. We've made a commitment in the same way that anybody makes a commitment to anything,
Yeah. Do all three of you hang out?
People that I date are, for the most part, on really good terms. If we're inhabiting the same spaces, everyone's friendly. There are times where we've gone on like vacations together. Like this summer, I had a weekend beach trip with 3 of my partners, but I was only really focusing my time with one of them, whereas the other 2 had their other partners with them as well.
Wow. Do you ever run into certain challenges? For instance, if one of your partners sees another one of your partners and they're attracted, do you ever find yourself in sticky situations?
That is not something I would define as sticky. For someone else, though, just to be clear, everybody does it their own way.
Yeah.
I've got friends who they would have a problem if one of their partners was attracted to another one of their partners. That's something that they would sort out. For me, that's not really an issue. I just see it as it's none of my business. I actually do have 2 partners who are dating one another. They knew each other longer, but they started dating a few months after I was dating both. And they've got a fantastic relationship. I love seeing them just be in love with each other. It looks very different than the love that I have for either of the 2 of them separately. Sometimes the 3 of us will get together and have intentional time together.
That's beautiful. Do you feel like you can be in love with multiple people?
Yeah, I mean, we all do it. We try to partition romantic love as if it's this thing that exists in its own space. But the fact is, the reason polyamory works is because it works in every other aspect of our lives. If you've got a group of friends and you got that one friend when it's time to come party, and it's a different friend when it's time to hang out and keep it chill, polyamory works in that same way. I love my partners. I don't love them for the same reasons. I don't love them the same way. Our relationships don't all look alike. I've got 2 kids. I love both of my kids. They're 2 completely different kids and they're both fantastic, but not for the same reasons. We do this in every other aspect of our lives, but we scratch our heads when it comes to romantic love, when really we don't have to.
The way you said it, comparing it to having friends, I think that's a really easy way to help people visualize what it can look like. I would think jealousy would play a factor into other people's relationships if one person starts liking the other. And if that's the case, what would you recommend would be the best way to deal with that?
The way to deal with it is confront it. If I was in a monogamous relationship and my partner did something that made me feel jealous, I would feel comfortable saying, just don't do that thing. Whereas I can't really do that in a relationship that prioritizes autonomy and mutual respect in that way, where if a partner is doing something and I feel a way, I've got to figure out why I'm feeling that way. How much of my anxiety around this thing is something realistic? How much of it is something that just in my head? A couple of years ago, a partner of mine was dating someone else. I started feeling a bit anxious or envious or jealous, whatever you want to call it, about the way my partner was centering this other guy. And it was all in my head. It wasn't so much that they were centering this other guy as that guy just had stuff I didn't have to offer. So really what I needed was reassurance that I wasn't being replaced, reassurance that I wasn't being dismissed. And none of that was real. None of that was on the table. Me and my partner's relationship was fantastic. It's still fantastic. And then recently I ended up marrying the 2 of them. I got one of those online ordinations and they asked me if I could marry the 2 of them because They wanted me to be a part of their story in that way.
Oh my goodness. I feel like you have to be so mature and like emotionally equipped for something like that. And one, to articulate your feelings and like figure out where you are with things, but then also to have the courage to say it to your partner and have them receive it and then reciprocate that same healthy communication.
You're absolutely right. But the thing about it is, those tools that are like absolutely 100% necessary to have successful and healthy polyamorous relationships, those are tools that everybody can use. Emotional literacy, the ability to like communicate your feelings in a non-accusatory way,
Yeah.
the ability to hear hard truths and not get immediately defensive and reactive. Those are lessons everybody would get something out of. And there are people who bring a lot of the same sort of toxicity into their polyamorous relationships as some that might get normalized in a monogamous relationship. Not talking trash about monogamy or anything like that, but there are certain things that monogamy normalizes. Like when you go to Target and you see a shirt that says, "Stay away from my man or I'll cut you." That's toxic. We normalize it. We make it okay. But that's not the kind of thing that's going to fly in a polyamorous relationship.
Right. Absolutely. What other boundaries do you think are necessary to put in place for a healthy relationship?
One of those boundaries is just understanding where your own limits are. I live in a home where like my wife has a room and I have a room. There are certain parts of her relationships that I don't really feel like seeing. And there are certain parts of my relationship that she doesn't feel like seeing. If I tried to force those things together, there'd be a lot more conflict than my relationships typically have. But that's us knowing that about ourselves. I know that well enough to say, like, hey, look, I know y'all are good. I'm going to go with the other room. And my wife knows that well enough about herself in a way that it doesn't have to escalate to a conflict. It doesn't have to turn into a fight. It could just be, okay, we're just doing two different things here. See you later.
For beginners and someone who wants to get into a polyamorous relationship, where would you guide them to go in order to learn more about getting into a polyamorous relationship?
Read all the books. Listen to the podcast. In general, read the room. And by reading the room, that can mean going to online forums. That can mean reading my book and others. That can mean going to your local community group and just sitting and listening to what people have to say. The other tip, don't make no plans unless you're ready to break your plans. Calling back to an old Chris Rock joke. A lot of people come into non-monogamy with a bunch of high-minded ideas of what they want to do, how they want it to look, who they want to be with, who they want to be. And then you meet somebody and that goes out the window. Like one of my all-time favorite quotes, and like I say it a lot, Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a game plan till they get punched in the mouth. And that happens a lot. Like it'll be like a married couple and they'll say, let's open it up. And then they'll write down like a set of rules. And then they'll meet someone to whom those rules don't really adhere to. Or they'll meet someone who will take issue to not having a hand in writing any of those rules. And then next thing you know, you got to throw all that stuff away. When my wife and I got into this earlier, like I've been with my wife 20 years, we've been married for 15.
Wow.
Every once in a while, my wife would come up with a rule and I wouldn't have a reason to decline. And I'd be like, okay, cool, And then she'd start dating someone and start breaking her own rule. And then I would start dating someone and break that rule. And she'd be like, hey, but what about the rule? And I'd be like, you've been breaking this rule for 6 months. And then we'd realize how foolish it was to have that particular rule. And then it would go, But if we decided to be sticklers about it, now we're in a fight. A lot of the ideas that you have aren't going to play out the way that you think they're going to play out once actual people are involved.
Yeah, I have a question about stability. Like I know for me, just in my own relationships, I feel like sometimes the reassurance isn't always in the way that I would love to receive it, even though my partner might think that they're giving me the reassurance. Like how do you not have scarcity mindset in those kind of situations where you feel like your partner could potentially meet anyone and then those rules change and then they might leave? Like how do you ensure security?
That's not a real thing. Like I hear what you're saying,
Okay.
but there's no promise, there's no agreement, there's no piece of paper, there's no ring that's gonna keep somebody with you that no longer feels fulfilled by you.
Right.
All you can really do is be who you want to be, both for yourself and your people, and hope that it stays. The right people stay, and it's not anybody's fault. Like there's no villain there. It's not, it's not like they didn't do what they were supposed to do or I didn't. It's just sometimes you have to go apart for whatever the reason. So all you can realistically do is be your true authentic self and choose the person that you're going to be with every day. And if that changes, you got to be honest about that. Like there have been times where I've been with someone and we were together for however long, and it's like, you know what? This isn't fulfilling anymore. And they spotted it and I spotted it. And now we're having a conversation. And you know what? Now we're paying our checks, giving each other a hug and moving on and going in our separate ways.
So we like ask questions to our community. And one of the questions that they had was this couple that's been married for a while and they've now decided they want to be in a polyamorous relationship, but they have kids and they're trying to figure out if they should tell the kids or not. Do you have any advice there?
Two parts. Firstly, why are they opening it up? Because if they're opening it up because that's something they both genuinely want to do and both see the value in, cool, cool, cool. If they're opening it up because they feel unsatisfied with what they already have, this isn't going to solve that problem. It's going to expose that problem, you know? Like, look, every relationship I'm in gives me some information both about me and about what I want. And if I'm getting good stuff over here and I feel unsatisfied over here, then that's going to shine a light on that. So really it's more a matter of deciding like whether or not there's just something you want for the sake of wanting it, as opposed to for the sake of staying together in something that's ultimately unsatisfying or possibly unhealthy. As far as kids, I was non-monogamous before I had kids. In raising my kids, like this was always their norm. We never had to explain it to them. This was just who we were. We never had to hide anything from them. I always advocate against hiding stuff from your kids. Like you can keep it age appropriate, but your kids are going to pick up on stuff whether you want them to or not. I had a couple of friends where they weren't telling their 14-year-old kid about their non-monogamy, and the kid just picked up on it and assumed they were cheating on each other. And now, like after a couple of years, they're like, "Oh, hey, this is who we are." They spent like a couple of years just assuming they were in a dysfunctional household, when really it was a loving household that was dishonest about the structure of it.
Right.
Yeah. Kids are so smart nowadays. They can pick up anything. I mean, they're
Yeah.
constantly watching all this stuff on TV. So they're more educated than we were at their age now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Kids are way far beyond in terms of intelligence from where we were at their age. And like I'm 44. I've got a 12-year-old daughter that amazes me with her intelligence like all the time. And a 9-year-old kid who's doing the same. Like they're so far ahead of where I was at their age. It's ridiculous. I can't expect to trick them or fool them with anything. Know them well enough to be able to have a tough conversation without it turning into a conflict. And more importantly, without it turning into an ask for permission. I feel like a lot of times parents try to have tough conversations with their kids as if they're asking their kid for permission, when it's like, no, you're giving information. You're not receiving information, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, this has been so informative for
Yeah.
me and just eye-opening. So thank you. My mind is like just working. I feel like with society, you know, so many times we're made to feel ashamed for feeling some way, or made to feel like we should feel hurt if our partner says something. You know, just like hearing you, it's more about the love and like the transparency of the love versus
Yeah.
the lust or the gluttony of it all.
Yeah, like when you hear about infidelity, a lot of times you hear people say it wasn't about what my partner was doing with someone else. It was the betrayal of it. It was the lying of it, you know? I'm not one of those advocates that say like that everyone should be non-monogamous. Not everybody's wired for it, and that's fine. But I feel like everybody should have the kinds of conversations that non-monogamous folks have. Even if where you land is on monogamy, you should be able to have conversations. You should be able to have emotional literacy. You should be able to have open, honest conversations without defensiveness, without accusation, and be able to just lay it out. Like if this is someone you love and this is someone who you're trying to spend like a lifetime with, the more of yourself that you feel like you need to hide, the harder that relationship's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think that turns into a toxic relationship and not a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
My head's spinning. And it's a polyamorous relationship. There's so many hot people out there in the world.
I like to think I'm one of them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you really put things into great perspective, especially with that friends reference, because it's very true. Every person serves a different purpose in your life and fulfills different needs. So I do think that was a really great way to put it, and very much so in a way that speaks to the Gen Z generation and explaining to them what it looks like visually.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank
thanks for taking the
you.
time, and we really appreciate you sharing your story and answering these questions.
Thank you so much.
So much fun. Thank you.
Have a great day.